Hello patrons, how's everybody doing today? Just a wee check-in video, and I'm back from a week's trip to London, so that you know what I've been up to. I do these wee trips down to London maybe about 4 or 5 times a year, sort of as and when there's something worth going down for. But if you're not familiar with the setup in the UK, the scripted film and TV industry, where I'm mostly a part of, I don't tend to do a lot of unscripted documentary work. Scripted is heavily based outside of London. Even jobs that come and shoot up here in Scotland or in the northeast of England, a lot of the time are crewed from London, and they'll bring people up, at least for the post side anyway. So it's very advantageous for me to have connections and contacts there. And so I had a friend through the editing guild. His name is Robert Frost. He's an editor on Slow Horses most recently, who had suggested that I come down for this editor-specific mixer event going on at Netflix HQ in London, which is something that Netflix do once every 2 years, mostly editors who have worked on their shows and their productions, as well as some other people who are invited by those people, for this kind of nice mixer evening where there'll be a whole bunch of free food and drink, and a few speeches from the Netflix guys, and then just general mingling and networking for everybody. It was a really cool evening, met some new people, but I think I was actually a little bit tired, a little bit kind of out of it, and I had mistakenly not talked to that many new people. I spent the night mostly speaking with people that I already knew and could have chatted to any time, but even still, it was really good to be there. So that was day one of my trip in London. I spent, the first half of the day traveling down, and then went to that event. Then on the next day, on the 4th, I went into work on this job that I've been working on for a few months. All my jobs, as I kind of alluded to earlier, are based out of London because that's where the industry is. So I remote into Avids down there quite a lot. So a lot of the time, I'm the only person in the production who isn't in London, which is definitely the case on this job. But it was really, really great to actually come in and spend some time with people in person. I went out for dinner with a couple of people I was working with afterwards, and we had a really good time. The suite was nice, the post facility was nice, all the people were great. So apart from the usual kind of troubles and stresses that can always have been prevented, that we're familiar with seeing in post-production, it was really, really great to be down there, and it's a really, really great job. I hope I keep getting extended, which of course led us into the weekend. I spent Saturday hanging out with another few editors' friends. Pride event and rallies were on all throughout London. And it was halfway through this day that I realised that with the travel and working and trying to do videos and seeing my family off at the beginning of the week and different stuff, I had barely slept all week, and I just kind of crashed halfway through the day. I was like, I need to go back to the hotel. So I didn't get a lot done on Saturday other than seeing some of the events and catching up with some old friends. So Sunday, I was also pretty wrecked. The only thing I did manage to accomplish on Sunday, other than going for a walkabout, was I went to see Formula One in the cinema, and let me tell you, if it's still out wherever you are, which I believe it should be, definitely one to see in the cinema. Is going to be on Apple TV later down the line, since it's an Apple funded film, but it's definitely one that should be watched in a cinema. It's like Top Gun Maverick or the Avatar movies. These are films that were clearly tailored and designed for that experience, and so much of the experience of seeing that film is seeing it in a cinema. It doesn't necessarily translate unless you've got some baller system set up in your house. But yeah, it was an absolute thrill ride, and I really enjoyed it. Can definitely recommend it. But thankfully, also that night on Sunday, I checked into a new hotel, which was so much more comfortable, really, really nice, and I finally managed to get a good sleep. So the following day after work on the Monday, I went to see Robert, who was the guy who had invited me to the Netflix mixer, and we met through the guild online, through doing lots of chasing down and networking, and through like actually BFE mentorship scheme that they do. And so before this trip, basically, we hadn't actually ever met in person. But after work on the Monday, I went and met him for dinner. And so we must have met up at about, say, 20 past 6. And then we were still there until like 11:30 when they were like closing up the burger place. And then that was amazing. He's exactly where I want to be and working on the kind of project I want to be working on. So I had so much to pick his brain about, but also You know, just such a cool guy, exactly my kind of person. We just vibed kind of all night long, and I don't think we were expecting to be hanging out as long as we did. So yeah, that was an awesome night. He gave me a lot of tips about different things, leads of people to chase up, new contacts in London so to reach out to. So now that I'm back up here, I'm starting to look into all of those. Tuesday was a fairly quiet day. There was an event, a networking thing I was going to go to in Soho after work, but when I showed up, I realized I had forgot to RSVP and they wouldn't actually let me into the building, which was a little bit annoying since I knew that they were nowhere near capacity. Holy ho, it was fine. I was actually pretty exhausted anyway. So that gave me back the evening to go back to the hotel and pack up my suitcase and everything before I crashed for the night, since I had to check out in the morning. Which brings me to Wednesday, last day in London, which was a very, very busy day. And, you know, I was working all throughout the day, had a lot of things to do. You know, we had some really good sessions. You know, a colleague at work took me out for a very nice lunch in middle of Soho for the last day. And then I went straight from work, you know, with my suitcase and my backpack and stuff. I had brought down like a bunch of kit because I like to very customize my Avid when I'm working there, rather than just use the facility setup. And so I went straight from there to Universal Production Music's building, which is right near King's Cross. I don't know if anyone knows London. It's in Pancras Square, right just north of King's Cross. You know, BFE's done a number of kind of events there in partnership with Universal and with others. And this one was a partnership with a group called Post Super, who are a group of mostly post producers, supervisors. They have their own kind of directory of freelancers, but they mostly do like lots of different training things and upskilling for post soups, as well as like directories. You know, they're not quite a guild, and I think it is a kind of paid membership thing, that more an organization, but yeah, they're focused on that side of thing. And so this was a shared event between them and the BFE, and it was like a kind of speed dating thing where they were going to rotate round editors and post supers to introduce you all directly to each other. And that was a really cool night. There was a bunch of people that I hadn't seen since the last time I was in London doing one of these things. We sort of catch up at each one of these. Met a bunch of new post supers and was handing out business cards like crazy. And even after the end of the event, we did lots of great conversations and been very productive. You know, there was a few of us who stayed on afterwards and went to a bar nearby and just kept the night going for a while. I don't know how long they kept it going, but I had to leave at about, you know, just before 11 to get the sleeper train to go back up north to Scotland. I had planned on making a video, you know, a couple of days ago, like as soon as I got back, which would have been on like Thursday morning. It's now Saturday, but that's like an 8-hour sleeper train, and I didn't sleep at all throughout that night, and so I needed a day or two to sort of, you know, recharge and recenter myself first. But that's me now, back at home. I'm back at my desk, focusing on my projects again. I mean, obviously still working on that job, but in what little precious off hours I have, I can focus on videos and a short film that I'm editing. I think my next kind of travel-y event thing that I'm going to do for work will be at Dublin at the end of the month for a couple of days. So any members that are in Ireland, in the vicinity of Dublin, I can happily come say hello. And yeah, that's been me for the last week or so. And, you know, I know that most people have subscribed to the Patreon or the YouTube members thing to get more kind of educational content or tutorials or stuff like that. And you might not be interested in what I'm up to or what's going on in my editing career, but I think it's important for me to keep these check-ins going so that in between videos, because, you know, releases aren't as consistent as they used to be, I just physically can't, you know what I'm doing and that I'm not just kind of ignoring this whole side of things, you know, that I am working and stuff, and just so that people remember that I'm working in the post-production industry. You know, I'm an editor, VFX editor, first assistant, depending on what's going. And, you know, the YouTube thing isn't my main thing. I had a couple of people tell me that when I was down there that they actually thought that I had left editing behind like 3 or 4 years ago in order to do this. And I was like, no, I'm still doing this as well. And I like showed them my IMDb page and stuff, and they were like really amazed. But yeah, I'm definitely still working in cutting rooms and still going around, and still in the industry and still chasing a career and all that. As I hope everyone watching this video is, and is doing very well and is happy with the work that they're currently doing. So I'm going to wrap it up there, and I'm going to stop record on this, maybe do some work on my short film, edit this video together later tonight. Also going to go see Superman later tonight, so looking forward to that. And yeah, hoping everybody's having a great weekend. See you guys.